Hello, everyone. Whale fam, hopefully you're doing well. We have a very exciting episode of the Metaverse Makers, Movers, and Shakers tonight. We have special guest, LGDoucet. I'm very excited to have him here as a guest. He's super awesome in the space. He's got the First Mint podcast. He's been running the show on Clubhouse. It's been super exciting. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Very excited to be here. I used to join and watch these months ago, and now it's kind of crazy to actually be in one of them.
Perfect. I'm very excited because we're able to really get a lot of resources and kind of that, I would say, historical or institutional knowledge and make that available to the community. It's having a lot of OGs in the space. We've been here, we've lived through it, but then trying to onboard everybody, it's like drinking from a fire hose,
I've never heard that analogy, so that metaphor. So that's pretty good.
It is
drinking from a fire hose.
That's how it is, I think, for onboarding to the space, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're curious, you're a little thirsty, and then there is no other outlet but an incredibly powerful, enormous one. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that from now on for sure.
Fabulous. We'll have it everywhere. That'll be great. So I think we've done an overview of, what it is you do. And I think most people have seen, the First Mint podcast, seen you on Twitter and Clubhouse. But for, maybe to start, why don't you tell us how you got into crypto and the metaverse space? I think that would be an interesting way to get us going here.
Totally. And I feel like everybody says this, that they always feel like they could have gotten in earlier and that they should have, and that somebody told them about it once and they ignored them. And I have the exact same story. Like dating back to literally 3 years ago, I had a couple friends who were like, man, you got to check out this CryptoKitties thing. And I was like, no, I'm busy. Like I was making like TV ads, like producing like GMC commercials and stuff. And I was like, I'm too busy with that, foolishly, like most people at the time. And obviously, around that time, also a little bit weary of crypto because it had just crashed back down, right? The start of 2018 was kind of back into a bit of a dark period. So for me back then, I was like, I don't know. I can barely understand this stuff and I don't really want to make the effort to learn. So I didn't. And I kind of ignored it for a couple of years foolishly. But then, this past year, like maybe a lot of people, I had a bit of extra spare time, especially through the spring and the summer of 2020. A little bit more time, a little less time working and a little less time traveling, let's say, than we're used to. So it was a perfect time to kind of start to look into crypto. And the very first thing I did actually was just teach myself how it worked. Like I'm a nuts and bolts person. Like I need to understand how things actually function before I can dive into them. So I, spent like a week or two literally just reading and consuming everything I could about like nodes and just fully getting a better sense of the infrastructure, even if it's something I know I'll never fully build myself, and ask, like everybody, ask my friends as many questions as I could. Very quickly within that, I discovered NFTs, and I didn't know what they were before, but by that point, it wasn't hard to wrap my head around it, and scoured the NFT, metaverse and joined so many of these events, went into all the, in the Token Smart Discord, like going to like the crypto voxels and all that, like just all that stuff that you could do, just having fun and learning and scooping up little NFTs wherever I could. And that was like, that was still like in the summer. So gas fees were still low and ETH was still like $200. So it was like, it was pretty low stakes in a sense. And within all that, quickly discovered Top Shot, and I was already a huge basketball fan. So seeing that big of a brand in the space was really exciting to me and kind of gave me the courage to dive deeper into it and invest a little bit more and explore a bit more and meet more people. And now, at the end of 2020, I told myself I'd try and find not work, but at least try and get way more involved and start to put my voice out there. And I've been doing a bit of, I'd hosted a couple events for Blockleet and in their Discord, and just decided I'd start a little podcast covering Top Shot, just explaining it to people, a lot of new people, a lot of my friends coming into it, not really understanding the complexities of Top Shot, and obviously definitely not understanding the complexities of NFTs and crypto. And that podcast has done well. It a lot of people have listened to it, and we've somehow, through like, I don't know, the iTunes or Spotify algorithm, like we've been able to crack like the top 10 podcasts of basketball in the US and many other countries like several times over the last month. And we're on like the Spotify like top 50 technology chart right now. I remember listening to you just start a podcast and you can kind of put the categories. And I was like, yeah, tech. This is a tech podcast. This is a tech podcast, but it's totally not a tech podcast. Somehow we're on there. We don't talk that, but we're talking about a technology product, you could say, but I definitely don't talk about tech on the show. But we're on there, and we've got a great community on Twitter. Very passionate people today. We saw the passion come out today, definitely.
Oh yes.
With the delayed backdrop. Yeah, rudem00se, I know you know that stuff too. But it's been quite the ride. And even when I started, 8 or 9 months ago, looking into NFTs, I couldn't have really imagined this. But at the same time, it feels really natural to be, this heavily involved with the community. And since all I've done is encourage other people to get involved and put their voice out there and meet new people, because I think that's the best way to learn and grow in the space. It's a long explanation to your question, but that's pretty much what's happened. And now I don't make TV commercials anymore. Now I just talk about Top Shot like 18 hours a day.
Now we make crypto commercials instead.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there are. I don't know if we'll ever see that. I don't know if we'll. There'll be a little bit. I don't think we'll have to spend $250,000 making a good commercial for crypto. Let's put it that way.
Which is perfect because it's more accessible. You can make all sorts of them.
Yeah,
and that's great. Well, it's funny because you said it was a long explanation, but I think that everybody's journey really is like there's not just like one day I heard about it and here I am. Like it's an adventure for everyone, really.
It's a fun adventure. I've really enjoyed it, and every day now I still feel like I'm learning a lot, and that growth curve is steep, but it is rewarding. And I find that one of the most important things to do is to pass on the knowledge. So many people were so helpful to me and gave me so much of their time early on, and I've returned the favor to new people who've come in, and I've seen them return the favor or pay it forward, let's say, to people that then want to know more about it. And it's the joke we've come up with is that it's like as soon as you start going into crypto, like suddenly you turn around and you're the crypto person that people know, and that's until this grows more, that's what it's going to be. Like I had to go ask like the crypto guy that I knew, and then suddenly amongst my friends, I was the crypto person, and now they are the crypto person in their circle, and and I'm like, I don't even know that much. It's like, I feel like I know so little, but that's just kind of how it goes, because it's a bit of a rabbit hole, right?
It really is. And like you said, like every day there's still so much more to learn, which is kind of amazing. And I would argue, though, that your podcast is a technology podcast, because the thing about blockchain, right, is there's a lot of technical, like you can really get into the weeds with the coding and such. Mm-hmm. But for most people, they start getting into crypto and blockchain as kind of almost, I would say, like the technology part is under the radar, like you don't realize how technical it is until you're there. And then you're like, well, here I am. So,
well, and that's what's worked really well in Top Shot, honestly, right? Is that, for better or for worse, people can just swipe their credit card and use it. And they don't need to necessarily get an ETH wallet, or well, obviously they don't need to get an ETH wallet to use Top Shot. Which now is a good thing, because Top Shot wouldn't be possible if we had to pay gas fees. We had to pay $50 for every single transaction. It'd be a bit of a hard racket for people to understand or to swallow that. But basically, I think I'm very big on the education side. So I do think we're going to need a lot of that education over the coming months and coming years, as more people want to migrate into more stuff in the NFT space. Right, as Top Shot is easy and it's a good intro, but something that's really dear to my heart and something I want to work on at the first minute is to really start to think about, a lot of people that are using Top Shot, like they don't even know what USDC is or what an ETH wallet is or how to actually set up their MetaMask. Right, it's like it's a bit of a foreign concept, and that's okay, right? But we're gonna, I think everybody here in the industry has an opportunity to help all those people figure it out.
And that's, I think that's one of the really commendable things, because that's what the whale community is really focusing on too, is kind of moving toward that education side and trying to make things more accessible. And that's something that was always kind of the vision of Dapper with CryptoKitties, is kind of, getting 1 million people into, onto blockchain. And now with Top Shot, it's, getting 1 billion people onto, the blockchain. And so having everybody kind of focused on the educational aspect of moving forward, I think is really going to be beneficial. Mm-hmm. And it's awesome that that's your focus as well.
Well, I think that's the way to grow the space, right? And it doesn't have to be, here's like, 200 virtual classes for you to take or anything. It could be for sure, but I think just giving people the tools they need to explore on their own is probably the most important part. Not necessarily telling them exactly what to do and when, but just setting them up for success. Even just making sure they understand, like, not your keys, not your wallet, like some of the basic principles of how to stay relatively safe in the space, and also how giving them a good sense of how gas fees work and how they can move their stuff around, and how interoperability is such an important factor going forward for so many people. Just a lot of those basic principles. I think we have an opportunity for people to understand that. And then what will happen too, as we educate more people, is not only will more people want to use all the great stuff that we currently use, like, buy more NFTs and use them and get into all the games and Top Shot and everything, but we'll also create new creators and builders by doing that, right? By giving them the tools that they need to learn. We're going to see now we're seeing explosion in the space, but I feel like in a couple of years we'll see an even greater explosion of the space after people have been kind of learning for a couple of years, and some of these projects have been kind of running their course. I could see like a totally second wave of completely new concepts that we can't even think about yet. It's really exciting.
It really is. Like, I would say on that note, is there anything that you've seen so far that, maybe didn't exist until recently and you're excited to see where it's going?
Well, I mean, Top Shot was definitely one of them, but I feel like we talk a lot about Top Shot, so maybe I'll talk about other stuff that isn't Top Shot. I've spoken to a lot of people in the last couple of months, and a lot of people, other podcasts and stuff like that, they want to know about Top Shot, and then slowly we drift into NFTs. And for many people now, I still find that it's really hard for them to see past, the art, and just see, they're like, okay, CryptoPunks, people want to buy it. I get it, and that's kind of like the limit of knowledge so far. But so I'll tell you instead some of the examples I use for them in terms of enlightening them to what could be possible in NFTs and what's already being done. One of the best examples that I love is some of the games, things like Axie Infinity and Sandbox. I know Whale Community has huge plots of land in the Sandbox. As I've seen, anytime I've looked at the map, it's hard to miss. But just explaining to people how the idea of owning land in a game, and how, the analogy I use for that is, I ask them, what does that look like if you applied it retroactively? If you owned the second level of like Super Mario, of one of the original games, or like what are some of the blocks in Tetris or something like that. And that's when for people it really clicks. They're like, wow, like I never thought of that. And I tell them, like, okay, think if that was an NFT that you could buy, how much would that be worth to buy the like second level of like the first Super Mario? And they're like, whoa. Okay. And then I was like, and you get coins every time someone uses it. And they're like, whoa, like, and I'm like, that is what is currently happening now. Like, that's what you can go and buy right now, is an NFT of what that'll be for games we might be playing for the next 30 years. So that's one of the analogies I like to use, or at least one of the comparisons, let's call it. And then I find that gaming is one of the easiest ones. And then beyond that, I try and inspire people as well in terms of utility. I try and make them understand that there's so many things that are currently done in a really analog way still, that we will be able to do in a really like good digital way in the NFT space. Start talking about like things like voting and stuff like that is still way too abstract for them. Like that's already way too much. But simple things like Top Shot is a good example of, like, your ticket is an NFT to go to a basketball game, right? Like just simple things like that, and how your tickets from all the games you've gone to, or even how you could earn something like a proof of attendance badge for simply going to a game or simply watching one, and how there'll always be a paper trail of your engagement with the NBA, or with whatever team you're watching, or a TV show you're watching, and how over time you could be either rewarded for that, or just brought closer together as a community, or gain extra access, almost like a loyalty program. And that's kind of why I throw that out to people, that they start to click, and they're like, wow, okay, so we're taking a lot of systems we have right now, we're going to make them far more efficient and far better for everybody who participates through the idea of NFTs and through the infrastructure. So that's more what I like throw at people. I kind of throw like a bit of that, like, here's some ideas of stuff you might be doing now that could turn into cool NFTs, right? Yeah, so I do that more than shill other projects that I love.
Nice. Trying to get the people in to build more projects.
That's it. Yeah, I want to inspire them.
That's
You know, I
the
think
idea. Come make it.
that's it. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in the space, but I think there's still a lot of great stuff to come as well.
I'm super excited about that too. I know you mentioned the proof of attendance protocols, and those are really fun because a lot of times, when you're talking about events, and you're like, oh, well, I went to this thing, and people are like, oh, me too, but maybe they, just looked at it online, and this is a way to really, like the, Pixar, it didn't happen. Like you've got the NFT. There's not really a way to forge that, which is awesome. So
Well, that's it. And another example I find really clicks with people, and it's something we've all said in real life many times, is I knew this band before they were big. Right. And we've all said that. And it's honestly, when somebody else says it to me, I'm like, I don't even care. Like, I was like, I don't care if you knew these guys 20 years ago. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Right. Because you just, but people, they want to wear that badge of honor. Right. It's almost like you want to stake the claim to having known about something great first and having been one of its great early supporters, whether it's a band or an athlete. If you're like, hey, when I saw this guy play basketball in college, I knew he would become a huge star. That's like people want to claim that. And we do that in so many places in life, but in so few places do we actually have any tangible evidence or proof or stake or return for that. So, again, using that analogy, I tell people, I was like, what if I don't know, who's a big band? Let's take Kings of Leon, who just made their own NFT, right? Like, let's use them as an example. I don't know where they started. Let's say it was Seattle or something. If you were a person who went to one of their first shows, which every band's first show is in some small dingy tavern opening for some other small band, and there's 10 people there, and you got to pay like $8 and you might buy a t-shirt. What if for when you went to one of those shows, instead of with your ticket, you got like some kind of NFT, or instead of, if you bought a CD, you got some other kind of badge? How much would that NFT be worth now from that very first show for some of these acts? And also over time, what could that band do to reward you for being an early supporter? Right. So for example, it's like, Kings of Leon, you went to their first show. They had no money. You paid $8 to see them. Now, they charge $300 for their shows. They're huge. They're multimillionaires. You, as one of the original fans, you got nothing. You get you got a CD from their first show, which isn't worth anything. And basically, maybe they signed it, but that's still like, that's old school memorabilia. Whereas, why not? What if they gave those NFTs to people at their first show? And over time, as they became big, they made newer ones and made their own coin, and they just gave it to you for having been the further back you were there, the more coins they give you, because they're like, you were always one of our OGs, so here's a great reward. And everybody here knows how that works, right? Everybody here is like, yes, of course, that's what I've been doing in crypto for years, is getting rewarded for being one of the first people. And that's something I hope we can start to apply everywhere else, because now we'll have, through NFTs, we'll have that paper trail, in a sense of support and of fandom and of investment. So that's something I explain to people, and they're like, oh yeah, oh wow, like I wish I had an NFT from all these like weird little shows I went to 15 years ago or 20 years ago, right? It's like, that would be cool. But so inspiration for anyone who's got a band now, mint your own NFTs and give them to your people that love you.
Those are like the ones where you didn't even get a ticket because it was literally just at a small bar and
it's a stamp.
The cover. Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm like, I've been to a lot of those shows where like I save all my ticket stubs, but some just didn't have any. Like they
and
were
some of those bands, they've got like a handful of hardcore supporters. Right. Some of those small ones that pretty much keep them alive, like a group of like 20 or 30 people that make it to every single show and pretty much keep them alive for like the first year or two, in terms of helping the band feel like they're actually onto something. But then when that band does a new album, goes to the next level, maybe they'll stay in touch with those fans and find ways to make it up to them in a way. But it's hard to do. You're not, unless, what are you going to trade emails? Right? Like it's just not quite there. Was this like, we'll have a tangible infrastructure now to do that. And we do it. Bands are just one example of any type of artist or creator can start doing that right now.
And that's super exciting. Like that, as a huge music fan, that's something I'm super into. So I'm really excited that you've shared kind of that vision as well. Because that
It's
is,
just a mod. It's just a mold that we could. It's just like an idea. I don't know if that'll be the most practical use case, but again, it just I'm very big on just helping find good analogies and examples for people to understand what's possible. Not necessarily for them to go and do exactly what I say. It's more so for them to take that and think about other processes in their life that will be eventually improved or created by the NFT space. And it works. It works. A lot of people can, I think it clicks for them then, right?
it totally does. So I will say too, I think that I first met you back during some of the Blockleet golf events. I think that was, the first time I saw you. We were doing some, of the competitions early on, maybe with the whale community and the CryptoKitties crossover tournaments and stuff.
That's right.
And so I think it's super awesome that you've been involved in multiple projects there. I think it would be interesting because you have gone from participating in the projects to creating like hugely successful, a podcast and kind of doing this clubhouse thing. And for other people kind of looking to get into the scene in that way, like what was that journey like? And what do you think, I guess, advice-wise would be helpful for success?
Great question. I had to put myself out there, honestly. It wasn't easy. I had to hover for a long time and look for the opportunities, right? I was aware of my skill set, I guess, which was to make like half decent content and also that I have a relatively people like the sound of my voice sometimes. So I was aware of that and I was like, there's got to be a way to leverage these, well, especially that last one is like a bit of a natural gift. I literally from the age of 13, I've sounded like this. So it's nice, but I'm gifted that way. But all the other stuff, like learning how to make content and communicating and pitching people ideas, those are all acquired skills. And I was looking around the space. I was kind of looking for the opportunities, right? I was looking at what projects I liked and which ones, out of all the projects I liked, what they were doing well and what I thought they could improve on, and literally just kind of writing that out in terms of, well, here's how these projects, I think they could use a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And with Blockleet, I just slowly got to know Shayna, who's the pretty much the head of the project there and the community lead, and started to chat with her here and there, and then eventually started to float her some ideas of well, how about for some of these tournaments or some of the upcoming, what we ended up doing is for the when they launched the artist collaborations, right, for the golfers, where they had Rare Designer and Tommy Wilson and George, what's his name, last name?
George Boya.
Oh, amazing! I have a few of those. Amazing golfers, great artists. As those launches were coming up, I just kind of took my shot and I told Shanna hey, we should do a live event for this in the Discord, and I'm happy to host it. I'm happy to co-host it with you and kind of put myself out there. And lucky for me, she said yes. But that wasn't the first time, and that worked out, and we had a great time. We did two of them, and Shayna was happy, and we jammed on other couple of community ideas, a few that she's implemented or taken and kind of ran with and implemented, which has been awesome. And that gave me that little bit of courage to maybe go to try something else, right? To try a little bit more. But I will say that pitching Blockleet on even those simple ideas was not the first time I put myself out there in the crypto space. That was just the first time somebody said yes. I got a lot of no's. I got a lot from jobs I applied to and other people I tried to message with ideas, all that kind of stuff. I got a lot of no's, and that's okay, because honestly, even now at First Mint, I give a lot of no's as well. It's just that's just, people are busy, people have great projects, and they have to vet ideas quickly. So I think one of the most important pieces of advice is if you're going to go out there and if you're going to put yourself out there and pitch some ideas and try and get involved, you have to be ready to not take it personally. You have to be a little bit resilient, and that just pretty much put in your head that you're going to get 10 or 20 no's before you get a yes. And that's just kind of a basic rule of life of trying to get out there, is that you cannot expect every single person to say yes every time you approach them. And it's a tough pill to swallow, and it does sting. But if you stick to it, your ideas will improve, your approach will improve, you will improve, and you will start to get some yeses. And it will start to feel good, and you will find your place in this space. That's my advice. Don't give up.
absolutely awesome advice, because that definitely is, similar to my own experiences where, as you mentioned, like it's something, you're going to put yourself out there and it might not always be like, it could be a great idea, but maybe just not the right fit. Like you might need a different, project or a different time, or maybe refine it a little bit. And so that is, huge for people to understand that, if you think it's a good idea, definitely stick with it, but maybe find a different fit for it as well.
Or massage your idea, right? Like years and years ago, I wrote a bit of like sketch comedy, and we used to do like a whole show and stuff like that. And the rule was the same: is that like write down your first 10 ideas and on a piece of paper, and then throw them in the trash, and then start at that next idea. Like that, it's just like the creative process is a journey. It's not a destination. That you need to constantly be coming up with fresh ideas, or at least a fresh take on your idea. Because what is it, like the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over and it never succeeding, or whatever that is, right? It's like, I think that's true, is that like you have to keep trying and reinventing. And even if it's something as simple as trying to get a community manager gig somewhere in the space, or trying to become a content person, or run some social media, or even just pitch a couple of your DAP ideas, it's like if somebody says, if the very first person you ever ask says yes, either you're a genius and you've come up with the most incredible idea that no one's ever thought of, or there's something wrong with them. Like, that's the other thing, is that people say yes too easily. I don't know if you want to work with those people, right? It's like because I find that, to have some success, it's like you have to become really good at vetting ideas and vetting partners, and being very quick and having a good system for saying yes and no. So people saying no to you, that's not a bad thing. It's just like they've got something they're working on, and your idea doesn't necessarily fit into the plan. That's not a bad thing, right? You just got to move on and stay fresh and keep at it, and you'll find a space. Because I did it for months, and it took me a long time to find something that worked.
Now you're doing so many awesome things.
But that's but that's the thing, is I always see people doing good. You're just always like, wow, it's so easy for them. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not. It doesn't just happen. It's hard. It's hard, man.
Constant work too, right? Like, cause you've got the First Mint that's on Fridays, but you're also in Clubhouse, multiple days a week, multiple nights. And
I've got 3 shows a week. We have 2 audio podcasts that come out every week. So we got Mondays and Wednesdays. And that's audio only. And we do, iTunes, Spotify, it's on all that stuff. It's usually about a 30 or 40-minute show where I interview, usually at the second half of the show is a guest, and the first half is like a market update and everything happening in Top Shot. And then Fridays, we do a 2-hour live show with a variety of guests, yourself included, on a recent episode of just people around the Top Shot community, some really strange stories, like we're trying to turn over a lot of rocks there of just the Top Shot space, same as the crypto metaverse space, is full of very interesting characters. So we try and, highlight that on the show and have some fun. And then we've done quite a bit of Clubhouse, and we're also starting to look at Twitter Spaces. Also is a cool spot, a little bit more inclusive, because people on Android can use it, so that's helpful. But slowly exploring that. But already that even just saying it all back now, it's like that's a lot of content.
It is. It's a lot of content. It's a lot of work, because not only are you doing the thing like at the time that you're doing it, but there's prep work. Scheduling
a lot of prep work.
People, like reaching out and kind of planning the content. So that's, it doesn't all just happen.
No, and I'm very high on quality. I want the content to be good, and not to say that there's a lot of content out there that isn't, but it's like I come again from, like, I'm a producer from like a commercial world, that it's like, for me, everything has to be properly planned out. We need to know what, we don't have people come on the show and say like, all right, what do you want to talk about for 20 minutes? It's like, no, I know a couple days in advance, I've got an outline of everything that we're going to say, right? And everything I'm going to say, and even recording the podcast, even doing it offline, it's like, no, I still like write that show for like an hour and a half at least, and just research and make sure I know what I'm talking about, and then fit it into 30 minutes. Like it takes a lot of work, but it has that is doing well. It that does work as well to prep and to strive for quality. I find is important in the space if that's what you want to stick to.
And I think that's definitely,
if that's what you want to be known for. Let's say that you have like decent quality stuff. That's
right. That's good for people to know and understand that, it doesn't just happen, even though you do it so well. So, it's one of those things, you make it look easy, but
that's it. Yeah. If it looks like it's easy for me, then that means there's probably a lot of hard work behind it. So, yeah.
I would say it's definitely added a lot of value to the space, though, and that's something that
Yeah.
the community appreciates and looks forward to.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Um,
There are a couple things I could talk about that we're also doing at the First Mint.
oh yes, do
Just to
tell.
know, like, what's actually going on. So we're trying to do. We've got a few kind of growth ideas in mind, and all of them to do with content. So I've got the 3 shows a week that I do. On the Friday, it's a community show where I host it with my brother, actually, which is great. Who's a lifelong NBA fan and has a podcast for NBA 2K as well. So a bit of a natural fit for him. And then also the Plunge Father, a very well-known community member in Top Shot and part of the First Mint network, let's call it. And we've expanded our content so that Plunge Father also has a show on Tuesday nights where he talks about analytics and has a lot of the analytic gurus, because Top Shot obviously is a market and people look at it like it's a mix of daily fantasy and stocks. So there is a lot of analysis, a lot of people with great spreadsheets, great charts. So we've got kind of a really great spot for it on Tuesday nights. And outside of that, we've started to get a little bit more creative on Twitter. Obviously, right now, there's a huge basketball tournament that's starting today with a bunch of semi-pro players, let's call them, college tournament. And a lot of people at this time do a big bracket challenge of some kind. And what we did is we actually asked people for submissions of their own Top Shot usernames, which we then have put into a 64 name bracket where the 64 names, so there's 16 per region, and pretty much it's like a vote off. So it'll be like, okay, the first seed versus the 16th seed, and then the community votes on which of those names they think is better. And what we did is we had a few different experts, let's call them, come in and pick half of the names. So we did a draft where they picked, like, okay, here's my first pick. Like the first pick overall is the username is Paul Rudd's cousin, right? So that's the first pick overall. And then the bottom half, the seeds 8 through 16, we actually randomized and chose completely random names from we had over 8,000 name submissions, and we chose completely random names from that. So there's a few of the random names that have actually gone further than the chosen names, including right now, one of the big battles that's happening is that number 1 seed, Paul Rudd's cousin, is going up against Ball and Blockchain, which was a randomized name that we picked, that was picked from the list, and Ball and Blockchain is doing quite well. The name of the tournament is Mint Madness. That's what we went with, Mint Madness, and it's put together by some of the other fine folks at First Mint, Greg Murray and Chugs and Bugs and Plunge Father, kind of coming from them. We also have a semi-celebrity person involved. We have Amir Blumenfield from formerly College Humor fame, who now runs HeadGum, the podcast network. So he was one of the people who chose some of the names. And basically with that, we will be down to the final 4 after today. And we're trying to get those 4 people onto our Friday show tomorrow to come and give like a 1-minute pitch on why their name should be the best one. And the prize will be the eventual prize for the number 1 will be a Tyrese Halliburton moment, like one of the triple badge ones. So that goes for like $1,200 or something like that on Top Shot. So the winner is going to get a pretty sweet prize simply for having a very creative username. So we're kind of I'm very much into kind of turn a mirror back on the community, turn over a lot of rocks. There's so many people in Top Shot, so many wonderful people in the community that it's like, let's talk about them while we also talk about Top Shot. Let's talk about everybody here. So that's one of the initiatives we have going on right now. There's another one I want to talk about, but I actually completely blanked on what it was, but I feel like we do so much right now that it'll come back to me.
There are so many, and it's funny because somebody had actually asked earlier who you thought was the favorite for Mint Madness. So,
yeah, that's right. So I'll just open up the voting. So I don't want to sway it too far, but I'll just go through what the actual matchups are. So in the Amir Blumenfeld region, it's Paul Rudd's cousin versus Ball and Blockchain, and right now they are literally locked. It's 49.9% and 50.1% between those two. So that is pretty wild, honestly. It's all Twitter vote. In the Chugs region, we have Wen Pax, number 1 seed Wen Pax versus number 11 seed Mo Bamba Mo Problems, which is also randomized, and Mo Bamba Mo Problems is currently winning. The third region, in the Greg Murray region, we had number 8 seed Charizard Go Rar versus number 2 seed Thick Jesus 42069. Thick Jesus 42069 is just demolishing Charizard Go Rar, so I think that one's a bit of a runaway. So Thick Jesus will be on to the final 4. And then the final region, the Phil D region, we have number 1 LeBron James Hairline versus number 3 Manny Pacquiao, like Pac spelt like like the pack of a pack of Top Shot. So and Manny Pacquiao is winning as well right now, winning quite convincingly. So I'd say out of what were probably going to be the last 4 or 5 there, I don't know. I thought Paul Rudd's cousin had a pretty good chance, but I don't know. Mo Bamba, Mo Problems is good. Thick Jesus 42069. You can't underestimate the memes. You can't underestimate the memes. I think even something immature like that has a soft spot in everybody's heart, no matter what they say. And that one's definitely a strong contender. Manny Pacquiao, I would say, is actually a surprise contender at this point. He's doing quite well. That matchup actually has by far the most votes, more than double any other matchup. So there's definitely somebody behind one of those handles that's getting some help from their friends to get some votes. So
some extra marketing going on.
Yeah, they got some. They want that Halliburton, right? And so they're. It's interesting. I love this kind of stuff. I love anything where we get to have the community involved, where we get to have all these like weird names. I grew up, a big fan of like wrestling and like Jerry Springer. So I love anything that's like really bizarre and a bit of a twist as well, right? So that's what we try and do on the Friday show, is just have it's a bit of a variety show, like a bit of a Jimmy Carson meets like Jerry Springer style. And I mean, when you were on, we played some fun games with you, so you know what I'm talking about. We just try and keep it interesting, right?
So that's what I was saying earlier. Like, it's almost, we're tricking people into learning. Like, you join for the entertainment, you walk away actually learning about blockchain a little bit. So
yeah, well, that's it, right? And I think that we have so many passionate people following us on First Mint and part of the community that, like, that's what I was saying before, is that slowly I think we're going to start to introduce them to NFTs. And we've already started. Even having you on the show was a great start, where they learned, a bit of the history of CryptoKitties and how that led you to here. And then also having Whale Shark on the audio podcast last week was, one of the big mysteries for a lot of people in Top Shot is, who is this giant Whale Vault account? Like, what is that? Who's that person? Because all the other people on that top list, they've seen on streams or heard on podcasts, they can message them in Discord. But Whale Vault, like, what is that? Why is that account so big? And so that podcast last week was really significant. We got a lot of great feedback from that, because people just didn't know what that was, and they didn't know who Whale Shark was, and they didn't really understand the idea that NFTs could be grouped together like this in a bit more of a community fashion of having multiple people help decide the future of the assets and what assets to get, and kind of group that together and having a token represented. That's still a bit of an abstract concept for people in crypto. So even just having Whale Shark on, even though we didn't go too deep into like, tokenomics or anything like that, just humanizing him is so important, right? Having just people hear his voice and be like, oh, okay, so this guy has, this is what he started, and there's a whole community that's with him. And then, half the podcast we talk about how Whale Shark used to play basketball, like, and what position he played and who were his favorite players, right? And that's just like, that's so important to me, is that you have to learn by relating, with relatable examples, with relatable people. It's really hard to learn. That's one of the biggest problems, I think, in school growing up, is that you don't really relate to your teachers. Your teachers they're adults and they're mean, right? And it's like, whereas when you're finally an adult and you learn from people that are like you, then it's so much easier to understand, and you can be a lot more vulnerable. So I find that having someone who's really kind, like Whale Shark, on the show, who's really kind with his time and also with just the way he explains things, like that's huge for a lot of our listeners who barely even can tell you what NFT stands for, right? And it's going to give them a lot more courage going into the space to explore and to be vulnerable with their questions. I think that's really important too.
That is an absolutely hugely important part of, I think, being in any community, is the ability to ask questions and trust that people will give you a straight answer, which is not entirely, I'd say, commonplace yet, but we're getting there.
It's hard. It's hard the older you get to stand there in the middle of the room and say, like, hey guys, like, I don't understand anything that's going on right now. Like, it's not easy. Like, some people are really good at it. I'm really bad at it. Like, when I joined Top Shot in early September, like, I didn't ask anybody any questions. And that's a huge regret of mine, is that, like, everybody else did, and everybody else, collected all these great LeBron moments. And I just kind of stood in the corner just being like, I'll figure it out on my own. And I did. And eventually I got to know more people and asked more questions. But man, I wasted so much time just thinking, I can do this by myself, and I'm, I don't need to ask questions like that. I spent a lot of time doing that. And now I'm slowly, coming out of my shell for that, and getting better at saying I don't know, and saying I don't know the answer. And that's, that's a good life lesson overall, is that it's like, it's okay if you don't know things. Like, it's okay, you don't have to know everything, right? Especially when you're exploring new stuff. So it's a good
You
lesson.
know all the things, and you're probably in the wrong place. Just saying.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. If you're the smartest person in the room, go to the next room, right? So go
Yep.
to a room where everybody's smarter than you, and you'll grow and learn a lot faster that way. So, I wish I'd done that in Top Shot early on. And
That's always been one of my favorite quotes, honestly.
which one for the smartest person in the room?
About being the smartest person in the room. Because,
Yeah.
if you're the smartest person in the room, you're not asking questions. So what are you doing there?
Yeah. That's
It gives you the ability to grow.
Yeah.
Of course, it could just because I ask a lot of questions all the time. So.
Yeah, exactly. Other stuff we've had that's been interesting at the First Mint, another really great interview we had yesterday. We're very lucky to have Daryl Morey on the show. And Daryl Morey he's the president of basketball operations for the Philadelphia 76ers. He is one of the most influential people in basketball. Basically, he came up with something that some people refer to as Morey Ball. Basically, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or read the book Moneyball. The movie has Brad Pitt in it, and it's about Oakland Athletics and how they changed baseball, their analytics approach. Daryl Morey, a couple years after that book, after that season, he kind of took the concept and applied it to basketball. And that, in the last 15 years, has completely changed the way the game is played. And he like, to the point where he has his own like theory, like in textbooks about his analytics approach. And we were very lucky to actually have time for me to sit down with him earlier this week. He is literally in charge of one of the teams that is like might win the title this year. He was running the Houston Rockets before, and had orchestrated trades for like James Harden and Russell Westbrook and a lot of other big time players in the NBA. It was a little trippy, definitely, to talk to somebody at that level of the game that I like literally watch all day, and somebody I've known of for so long. Really interesting to talk to him, but at the same time, almost very similar to Whale Shark, like such a kind and generous man, like so nice with his time. It's some of the most impressive people I always find are people that are really good at using your name a lot. Everybody likes hearing the sound of their name. It's one of those like Dale Carnegie like lessons of 10 ways to influence people or whatever. But he and Whale Shark are both like similar like that they just said like, yes, of course, Luke, like so many times while we were chatting. And with Daryl, it just felt like we're old buddies catching up. And that's honestly the best kind of interview. And it's quite a good listen, even if you aren't into basketball, because he spends most of it talking about NFTs. He talks about his collection on Rarible and his favorite artists. And then he also talks about how he made an NFT of his own theory. So he has like a textbook image of his theory, and he made 5 of those on Rarible that he's selling for an ETH each, that he's going to send the proceeds to charity. So he's like, for someone who's like, I don't know how old he is, but he's the president of a basketball team. So he's not 19. For somebody of you might not consider that like the current NFT demographic. He's incredibly sharp with that stuff, and he totally gets it. And yeah, I don't know, the idea of selling your own like math theory for basketball is hilarious to me. And tomorrow we're going to release like the full uncut video version. So far it's only been audio, but there's a twice as long uncut video of me and him just chatting for like 40 minutes that ends up like, we barely talk about Top Shot, honestly, for most of it. Like we talk about NFTs. He starts talking about like nuclear power. I start talking about all the comic books that I lost and I don't know where they are. Like it just goes like, it just spirals way out of control. But it's great. It's like, again, like I love that idea of interviewing people and humanizing them. And then he talks about, then he ends up talking about his NBA Top Shot purchases and his strategy and where he sees the potential there, and in So Rare and all the other apps. And it's definitely something to, if you're heading over to the First Mint channel, it's definitely something you want to check out in the podcast and on YouTube.
So, and I think that brings to the next question, right? Because like interviewing people like this, like that, even a year ago, is that somebody that you imagine like you'd have the opportunity to just sit down and chat with about things like comic books and nuclear power, like random sort of chatting, I feel like
think that would happen. I don't know. I never thought that it's not that I never thought that it wouldn't. I think when I got into the space and when I started making content for Top Shot, my goal was to always provide value, and it still is. I want us to make content that's helpful for people. If not helpful, then entertaining, or both, right? And that's always been the mission, and that's the mission every single day when I wake up and make content for Top Shot and I talk to people in the community, is I want to help people. It's a scary world, investing thousands of dollars into digital basketball cards. Like, that's not easy. It's not easy to kind of justify doing that for people. And our goal is to really make people feel really, really safe and happy doing that, like they're making good choices. And a huge part of that is, like things like explaining who Whale Shark is and having him come on the show, having one of the most important people in basketball come on the show and talk about how they're doing it too, right? And even for them to talk about their concerns with the product. It's like that's through value. The idea of providing value and education to me is providing a fully rounded circle of opinions, of voices, of points of view, of educational tidbits to really arm everybody in our audience and in our community with the tools they need, the knowledge they need to make great decisions and to be safe and sound in the space. So I don't know how that relates back to like whether I ever saw myself like interviewing important basketball people, but it's never something I excluded from the vision. Like, the other day, actually, this is crazy. And I think, you guys had interactions with her too. Like Paris Hilton followed the First Mint on Twitter, like 5 days ago. And I was like, wow. And, I was like, wow, I haven't even thought of Paris Hilton since like Simple Life. But that like was cool. I was like, well, like if Paris Hilton comes on our show and it helps people like understand NFTs and Top Shot and it provides value, like so be it. Like we're still on the same mission. So I never really thought about where that would take me. I just thought about, I've always just been focused on like the here and now of like, let's do something that makes sense for that idea. So yeah, if it's Daryl Moore or Paris Hilton or Obama or whoever, then that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
I always end up being like a little bit starstruck when I hear about this. And I'm like, really? Like they're going to talk to me? Like, who is this?
But that's okay. Like that's the position we're in the space now, is that a lot of people are interested and want to know more and talk about the projects they're doing. And it's okay. That's what it is.
Crazy exciting and validating. And oh my goodness. Things. So we had some questions actually from the community as we've been chatting today. So maybe we could go through a couple of those. And it looks like you're mostly focused on Top Shot. And I know that, doing the First Mint, that's definitely something that you've got a bunch of experience.
I'm here to talk Top Shot, man. I am ready to chat Top Shot all day. I know we went into like a deep story, but yeah, hit me. What are the questions?
Ready. So I think because there are 3 of them that we've got. The first one we'll start with is actually looking at what you think about the idea of gamification in Top Shot. So things that, the team's looking to implement. I know that there's been talk about things like power-ups, leveling system, and, choosing your starting 5. Like for the progression of Top Shot from simply collecting to being able to use them as utility tokens in a game.
Yeah.
What are your feelings there?
Like, how do I feel about it, or what do I think is going to happen?
Both. All of the above. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah. Man, I don't know. For Hardcourt, which is the game, right? It's like it's really hard to say what that's going to look like. I have no doubt that Dapper is going to make it super cool. That's the only thing I do know, that I think we all know for a fact, is that like they're you, I guess, rudem00se, all of you are going to think about it with a lot of purpose and make sure it's done right, especially with everything that's happened recently. I think something that big is going to need to be done right and done with a lot of purpose. If I had to throw a prediction out there, I would say that it's probably something like a bit like Axie, where you've got your cards and your moves and your players that you've chosen or something like that. But basically, where you would play some kind of basketball game where it's like, I have the ball. It's kind of like when you play like pick up a game. Like, I have the ball, and I'm gonna play like a dunk from Luka, and then you're gonna play like a block from Bam Adebayo. And if my Luka has like a better rating, with the rating probably decided by a low serial number, by the type of set, like rare or legendary or common, whatever. If my Luka has a better rating, then it will beat your block. If your block has a better rating, it'll beat my dunk. If you block, then you get the ball. If I dunk, I score, and then I have the ball again. You know what I mean? It's like I could see it being kind of just thinking about how the plays are laid out, how there's some defensive plays, there's some scoring plays, there's other types of plays. I could see it kind of working out that way. What I'm actually probably most interested about is what the what the game rewards are going to be like, right? Whether in the end it's good, if we're going to be at the point where we're getting flow tokens for winning games, or if we're going to be at the point where we get some of those like sweet 3 of 3 platinum moments for winning tournaments, right? Like I don't know what that is, and you're smiling. Maybe you know something, but
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Like,
yeah,
I'm ready to play
hope, there's so many mysteries in Top Shot that I hope that the game is going to be the big unlock for that. Outside of that, in terms of utility, like one of the things I'm most excited about is players getting involved, and not necessarily the players getting involved and saying like, "Hey, send me some moments to my account." That's fine; they can do that. But players getting involved in terms of again that fan reward and that utility of the moments. So, for example, whoever your favorite player is, let's say it's Pascal Siakam. Like, what if Pascal Siakam starts a fan club where he's like, "Whoever's got 10 of my moments, you guys are all." I'm starting my own fan club. You need 10 moments to get into my Discord and you're in. And so long as you hold 10 Pascal Siakam moments, you get to hang out with me. I'm in there for an hour every day. I'm going to chat with you. And guess what? I'm going to start making my own NFTs about my own brand, totally unrelated to the NBA or the Raptors. And we're going to do the totally fun thing. And over time, if more players did something like that, then you would see people gravitate towards the players that they relate to the most, right? So you'll see personalities. Like right now, we gravitate towards the players that are most popular because they're flashier on the court or they're just really good. But what we'll see is like maybe some more obscure players will actually rise to prominence through the utility of their NFTs because they've just decided that they're going to provide the most value for people that hold their NFTs, right? It's kind of like, everybody like who are the best players in the league, like Kevin Durant or Steph Curry. But it's like maybe at the end of the day, you'll be more into like, I don't know, like a Ish Smith or something like that. Like maybe Ish Smith is going to come and he's going to have like literally the best possible NFT club of you own his NFT and you get the sweetest stuff. And he like calls you on your birthday or like comes to see you or something like that. And whereas opening a Steph Curry moment, like maybe Steph Curry, he's not into NFTs and you don't really get anything for owning his moments. Like I think we'll see a diversification of personalities and players wanting to reward people for being investors in them and being believers. And I think that would be just scratching the surface of what might be done with those, not even talking about what teams might do. So I think that's kind of like some of the future aspects of Top Shot of what we might see sometime really soon. And in terms of game dynamics, like again, I have no idea. I'm also of the opinion that in 5 years, Top Shot won't look anything like it does now. Like the analogy I use is like tip of the iceberg is like, I think we're literally, knowing a little bit about how Alan's brain functions and how, Arthur and just how they've designed things. I'm like, I think we're literally just only seeing the start of what this is going to be, especially as players and teams and the NBA maybe get a little bit more involved and make a few more recommendations and that changes the game over time.
I would say that definitely makes sense because, anything really, if it looks the same in 5 years, then, well, it probably hasn't been doing much. So
that's it.
That's where we're at with that. So when you actually answered the second question asking about, other utility of moments that you're excited for, because it sounds like, having the players kind of finding ways to reward their collectors.
That's just an idea, right? Like that's just something I kind of threw out there just based on some of the stuff we've seen, but it could be so much deeper than that.
There's so many options.
There's so many options, and you're already seeing like again, we already have the blueprint of a creator economy, right? We already have Twitch. We already have a lot of other systems like that where people can create content and they can reward their subscribers and all that kind of stuff. So I think NFTs are just going to be the evolution of that, whether it's in Top Shot or not. That you'll see like athletes, artists, everybody just find more creative ways to connect with their people and connect with their community and also create with their community, right?
That's exciting. And so the other question someone had asked is, which upcoming NBA Top Shot pack are you most looking forward to and why? So we have, announced some packs coming up, and maybe this could include things that have not been announced, but you feel like should be a thing. So you can have wish list items too.
Well, I mean, we only know so much of what's coming out. that the run it back set that's supposed to come out with like Shaq and Allen Iverson and stuff like that is really exciting. Also because of the players that haven't been named. Like if it's from the late 2000s, like there's a lot of amazing legendary players, or even non-legendary players like playing in that era. That is just going to be like a really great throwback for everybody that was watching the NBA at the time. So that to me is like super exciting. And I know that for a fact that it's like if they announce a new run it back set and Shaq's in it and that's actually going to happen and they get minted, those signups better be open, man, because you are going to have so many people coming in. I think one of the most exciting aspects is, and everybody here probably agrees, is that you can go so far back in time in the NBA, right? And even people like my dad, right? That I told about, I explained to him what I'm doing, and he's like, cool. He's like, yeah, I'll probably join when there's like moments from the '80s. He's like, I'd love to have like a Larry Bird, and I'm like, Dad, that'll happen. Like that'll probably happen. I was like, not for a while, but that'll happen. So I'm actually most excited about the hypothetical stuff that's going to come out. I'm excited to see what ends up happening with Platinum Ice and Genesis and the auctions and what kind of people are going to get those and buy those. Another weird rumor that I have to address sometimes, and I don't know if anybody has any clarification on this, is the circus pack. So if you go on the website and you hover over packs, sometimes we get the image that's like, it's like literally, I feel like it's an old promotional image and it's cosmic and circus packs. And I feel like from way back when I joined Top Shot, that's a circus pack was used in like these like pre-marketplace, like pre-pack, any pack release days of just like, here's the types of packs we could have in Top Shot. It was kind of like maybe part of like a pitch deck or something like that. But like literally once a day on Twitter, somebody hits me up and it was like, LG, have you seen this circus pack leak? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know how to tell you this. There's no circus pack. Maybe one day there will be. Like maybe I'm wrong, but I was like, I don't think there's a circus pack coming anytime soon. I also don't think Top Shot would just put it on the site like that, just kind of like in plain sight. Like I don't see that happening. So that's kind of a funny one. But other stuff I'm very excited about is probably this year's playoffs. In general, being a basketball fan, it's like these playoffs are going to be awesome. There's a lot of players out there with a lot to prove this year. Hopefully everybody can stay healthy. And watching Top Shot and getting playoff moments last year was so awesome. And like, just to be like, okay, here's the playoff round. And then a week later we get the moments. Like that was so fun to kind of like commemorate each round of the playoffs, that I'm excited to do it with like the critical mass of people that we have now. Cause last year was like, we were doing it with like 500 people. So this year will be a lot more fun to do it.
It will be super exciting. And then I think somebody had asked earlier kind of what you think will happen once the season ends, which, we've already been through this once. Because it was kind of, Top Shot started back in June.
Yeah.
And I know you said you started in September.
Yeah.
But, it is something that there's some precedent for, but we've grown, a lot since last year. So what do you think, during the downtime, in terms of content creation, how have you started planning for that yet?
I'm going to go on vacation, man. And I'm assuming the rest of the Dapper team, or at least everybody else, is going to do something similar. Planning for it. Like last year, I thought Top Shot did a great job where they kept it going during the off season. Like we had Lace 'em Up, we had a lot of other packs drop, run it back. So I'm assuming that Top Shot has a lot of great stuff planned for this year's off season. Like knowing that interest in basketball falls off a cliff as soon as the season's done, which is natural. Like we all need a break, and there needs to be a long off season. Players need to rest and need to get traded and sign elsewhere. All that kind of stuff needs to happen. I feel like Top Shot and the NBA are going to have some really great promotional stuff lined up. And I don't know, for me personally, planning for the off season, like, I don't know. Yeah, I plan to like take it easy probably, but that's probably going to be a good time for First Mint to start looking at what other NFT projects are coming out and other ones that are in the space making noise and start to talk about those, right? Like that's not, I don't know if we'll take a break. Like I think it'll just kind of create a bit more of a void for us to start to talk about So Rare, or, maybe some of the other sports leagues will have some rumblings of stuff that they're doing by then. They're definitely not ignoring this. It'll take a long time, not saying that Top Shot didn't take a long time to develop, right? It takes a long time to build something like this. So I don't think anybody can do it overnight, but yeah. So for the off season, looking forward to some rest, but also to the creativity from the Top Shot team to how they're going to keep things interesting for the community.
Nice. Yeah. I'm definitely curious as well to see what people will come up with, like outside of the Dapper team, to fill the void of no games. So,
I also I went into the off season last year in November with like such a hardcore strategy where I outlined all the players I thought were going to be traded or like sign elsewhere in free agency, and then like pretty much none of that happened. And like I bought like 20 like Fred Van Vliets and like all these other players, and then none of them moved teams. So this year I'll probably take a less aggressive approach to the off season, than I did last year because it didn't work.
yeah, well, I think it's definitely a more competitive market this year too.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, so
Kind of the way all the things have been moving and kind of the huge influx of players. So it'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah,
That's for
exactly.
sure.
Were there any other questions? I was just looking at Discord. I saw a few other ones randomly come up, but I realized we're probably also out of time.
So we are getting to that hour mark, so I don't want to keep you all night, but I was going to ask if there was anything that we haven't yet covered that you think would be important to share with the community, or things that I didn't ask you that you're like, gosh darn it, Candy, why didn't you tell me?
Not really. We're always planning further ahead. First Mint, and I know like we as in like this organization didn't exist 3 months ago, but very similar to even the messages that Roham's put out there. For First Mint, it's like this. I don't see this as like a flash in the pan. Like over time, maybe our media will change. Maybe there won't be as big a need for the podcast or the shows, or maybe there'll be a larger need. But for me personally, and a lot of the folks I'm working with, it's like this is a long-term thing. I think NFTs are here to stay. I think we're going to go through several different hype cycles of NFT. And right now we're definitely in the middle of one. But I think over time, I really want to build something here in the First Mint that will grow with the space and be a part of that growth, and ideally lay down a blueprint for how media can be done in the space, and maybe in a little less of a traditional way. So, I don't really have anything else to say other than, I hope we can do First Mint for a really long time. And I have no doubt that there will be plenty of great NFT projects for us to talk about for a really long time, both Top Shot and others included.
Definitely looking forward to that, because I know that you've always got some of the best content, and I learned quite a bit keeping up with the podcast. So
I appreciate that.
It'd be good for everybody who has not yet followed to get on that.
There was one question I saw in the chat just a couple minutes ago, is how do I keep up with so many other projects that are happening in the NFT space? And the truth is that I haven't. And that's a big sacrifice I've had to make, is, again, I'm very committed to what we're doing at First Mint, and a lot of the other stuff I was interested in had to take a huge backseat. Probably one of the most devastating ones was Aavegotchi. A month and a half ago or 2 months ago, I was ready at I was ready to go at like 4 a.m. my time or whatever for that launch, but then they had to delay because the gas fees were going to be too big, and then they migrated over to Polygon, and Polygon. It was Matic. No, it's Polygon. Anyways, and I had to miss the launch. I just couldn't get up at 5 a.m. and I was too busy. I was too exhausted. And I was like, I purposely missed it. I was like, I won't be able to do this. I've got like 20 of the outfits from the raffles that I won in the raffles, and they're just going to sit there for a while. Maybe I'll sell them. Maybe I'll eventually pony up and get one of the Aavegotchis. I had all these spreadsheets of like which ones are going to be the rarest ones and all the combinations I'm going to make. And then First Mint Top Shot just took over, and I haven't been able to pay attention. So it's a bit of a tragedy, but I wouldn't do it any differently. So the answer is that it's really difficult to keep up with all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a whirlwind with so much going on, and it all moves so fast.
You got to pick your battles. You got to prioritize, and I have, and I missed out on some cool stuff, and I'll continue to miss out on some cool stuff, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. I like what I'm doing.
I'll also be part of some cool stuff. So,
well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So hopefully we've got some cool stuff, coming up, and already part of the cool stuff that's happening at Top Shot anyway. So it's fun to be there. Yes, and I know that there's another haunt coming up for Aavegotchi. Maybe I'll take part of it. The thing is that anything that's based on the UTC time, it's just like, it's impossible, man. I'm on West Coast. That's like, and I know a lot of people feel the same way about Top Shot. Like people in Australia and stuff just get totally screwed by the 4 a.m. Top Shot drops, and especially today when it gets delayed. But I'm on the opposite end of that for some of these other NFT launches, and that's okay. It's all right. Maybe I'll get up early one day for one of them.
The downside of having a super global movement, huh?
Well, that's it. Yeah. And I remember getting up a few times
for everyone ever.
I got up early a few times to the Sandbox sales, and Unfortunately, one of them was very similar to some of the Top Shot stuff where the site couldn't handle the traffic. That's what I try and tell people too. I'm like, hey, listen, like this Top Shot, like this, it's not. They're not the only ones that have this problem. They don't. Other people love NFTs, and a lot of the other ones have the same issues. Like it's not. It's a problem in the space right now. Scale in general is a problem in the space, and bots and all that stuff. Like everybody has the problem. But that's a good thing. It's like there's a lot of interest, so it's better to have all those problems than to not. So that's what I would say.
Yes, definitely. Having the extra hype is always nice. And we'll, I think, as a whole community, be able to make it to the next steps, and get through, and things will grow and maybe meet our hype levels at some point. But we're very good at being excited about things, aren't we?
In Top Shot, I always talk about the different phases of being like a Top Shot person, where it's like at first somebody tells you about it and you're like, no, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. And then the second phase is you get in and you're like, this is interesting. And you buy a moment. Third phase is pure euphoria of getting a pack and opening it. And you get like a LeBron and you're like, wow, like I'm so obsessed. And then stages like 4 through like 45 are just like a mix of like, again, that pure joy and pure agony, where either you're missing out on a pack, or you sold something too low, or you bought it too high, or the site has an issue or something like that, or that whole cocktail. But once you get through that kind of phase, you just become like a believer in the product and a believer in the process. Like on Twitter, the people that like a month ago or 2 months ago were just so mad at some of the different drop delays or anything like that. Now they are also the biggest defenders when something like today happens. They're like, it's fine. You'll get your pack. Like, well, I'll be fine. You know what I mean? It's like, so you kind of go through all those phases. And at one point you're like, I'm just in it. I'm on the spaceship and we're just all going there together. And you guys just got to chill out. It's going to work out. It's like, so everybody just slowly turns into that, which is good, which is really good. But you just come to accept it that's hyper growth, man. It's just it's hard.
It is. I'm definitely excited for more people to get to that phase where we're just in it and we're chill.
That's it. And I think once everybody has gotten a couple packs and they've had some fun and they made some trades and they've done a couple flips or whatever, then they kind of, it clicks for them, and they're then in the nurturing role of helping other people calm down a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be good for sure. And it definitely helps that we have, people like you are doing the podcasts and doing the events and kind of keeping people on the same page, because it's really easy sometimes to get lost in the weeds. And it seems like, you tend to keep folks a little bit more centered. So we appreciate that.
I do our best. Yeah, for sure.
That is helpful. So yeah, I don't see any other questions in the chat. We've definitely gone through a lot, and I think your adventure in the crypto space has been really valuable for people to kind of see as they're getting in, whether they're new or they've been here a while and maybe looking for ways to get more involved. I think that definitely is something that they'll be able to take away some lessons from today. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Like I said, it's great to be on one of these.
It is awesome to have you, Luke. And, thank you for taking the time.
Of course.
DC manages our ending of the stream, so I'm sure he'll be doing that soon. But we'll sign off for now, and then definitely pop in for the first mint tomorrow with the stream. And I would encourage everybody else to do the same as well, because those are fun for sure, and you always have the really exciting content going.
For sure. Yeah, 5:00 Pacific. Tune in on the First Mint YouTube. That's where it's at.
Yes, we will be ready. Thank you so much, Luke.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.